Hello chess friends and welcome to your Chess channel and welcome to a spectacular gameplay by the most powerful chess engine in the world by Stockfish 17. Today we see the fish battling it out against another top engine Velvet in a crazy Rossolimo Nyezhmetdinov attack, but today we see the big fish playing this opening with the black pieces, and I think this is a very spectacular one, very an instructive one. And I would also love to mention I think the Rossolimo Nyezhmetdinov attack is really unpleasant to handle. It has been played many times in top grandmaster level. In the World Chess Championship match in 2018 we had the Rossolimo Nyezhmetdinov attack very often played by Fabiano Caruana against Magnus Carlsen's Sicilian defense. So it's very unpleasant. As I said, many low-rated players have a tough time to meet this opening. I myself had also some issues, some positional issues, but Stockfish will show us here really perfect way how to handle this very annoying attack. So let's see now what happened with the white pieces. The Velvet engine opened with the move e4, c5 by the fish, the Sicilian, knight to f3, knight to c6, and now after bishop to b5 we have the Rossolimo Nyezhmetdinov attack. The idea is clear. Bishop to c6 is a positional threat. White wants to mess up the pawn structure on the queen side by doubling up the pawns on the c file by simply trading off the bishop for a knight. It's not a spectacular idea, but it's quite as I said, really sometimes hard to handle. You have this messed up pawn structure, you don't know where to make progress. So one of the best ways here, and I think also very often played line, is now this Fianchetto idea with the move g6. If you play now bishop takes c6 immediately, then b takes c6, bishop to g7, and then with e5 black would have then a great control of the d4 square. So it's, I think, a decent method from black's perspective to meet this opening. So here that calcing played by Velvet. Velvet doesn't want to take this knight immediately. Stockfish continues now with the development, and now rook to e1. A very cool method also by White. White wants to now grab some spaces by playing bishop to c6, and then after b takes c6, e5 is then a positional idea to keep more spaces here for White. That's why Stockfish continues with e5. It's not allowing this idea, and you could now play again bishop to c6, doesn't matter. Then after d takes c6, black is of course left now with this weakened pawn structure on the c file, but has a great control of the d4 square, and also continues now the game with the bishop pair. Has been played many times, but again Velvet doesn't want to simplify the game immediately. Plays now a very progressive line with the move c3. The idea is clear. We want to play d4, or maybe in some lines, if it's possible, also the move b4. Stockfish continues now with knight from g to e7, and now bishop takes c6, I would say, doesn't make any more sense for White, because you don't gain anything. You didn't even mess up the pawn structure. If bishop to c6 happens, then knight from e7 to c6 will happen. Black is keeping the healthy structure and keeps the bishop pair. Then of course black should be better. But now Velvet goes into a very unpleasant line also with the move a3. Now Velvet changes the direction of the attack, is preparing now the move b4. Usually d4 is also often played in chess history. I wanted to show you a beautiful game played by the legendary player from Azerbaijan, Vugar Gashimov. Here with Vugar with the black pieces play now this line. After knight to d4, e takes d4. His opponent here, let me check it out, Amin Bassem, tried bishop to g5, and then after calcing e5, and then Vugar Gashimov went to this line with the move d6. He simplified the game, and actually after a couple more moves, black had even a much better position here. Vugar Gashimov eventually won the game. So I think this is a must-know method against this early d4 move. You just trade it off here in the center of the board, and then go for this attack against the bishop, and d6 is, I think, really the most powerful line here for black. But here after move a3, Stockfish continues with calcing, and now b4 here by Velvet. Very aggressive line now on the queen side, and Stockfish continues now with the brilliant plan, which is, I think, again, must-know theory. Stockfish continues now with the brilliant d5. This is the way to go. And let's see now options again, what White can do now in this particular position. If you play b takes c5, this wasn't playing the game, but I was curious what's going to happen if b takes c5 would have been here Velvet's continuation. Then d takes e4, knight to g5 continues the pressure against this pawn on e4. Now we play knight to a5, and even if knight to e4 happens, then you have this one, bishop to e6 with an attack against the b3 weakness. Nothing spectacular is actually going on here. It seems so that maybe white could try maybe this idea knight to d6 to hop with the knight here in the center of the board, but this not working because of knight to b3, rook to a2, and then knight to c5 is simply collapsing here. This knight is protecting this pawn on b7. The knight is a little bit loose, misplaced here in the center of the board, so not a good continuation. What you could do after knight to e4, you could maybe try here after bishop to e6, the move bishop to a4 has been played also in one game that I see in the database between Fabian and German Benz against Jans-Uwe Klügel, in which here h6 can be played. You just prevent this knight to jump here on g5. Maybe again knight to d6 can happen, but then with b6 again, black is much better. You deflect this pawn from the defense of the knight, and this is not a good continuation anymore here from white's perspective. So that's why here after e takes, after move d5, Velvet continues with e takes d5, which is still the best move here for white. Stockfish continues, of course, with knight to d5. We have now b takes c5, bishop to f5, and I had my worries. What's going on actually here on the board? I asked myself the question, what would have happened, for instance, if you try bishop to c6, b takes c6, and knight to e5? If that would have been the case, then rook to e8, even if you try, I don't know, knight to c6, then we have this one, rook takes e1, queen takes e1, and then queen to e8 is simply devastating here for white. You have to now trade off everything, and now you don't have time to compete anymore on the first rank. The issue in any of these lines, I would say, is that white has a lack of development of these pieces on the first rank. White could gain the pawn, but the development is here a huge issue. After bishop to f5, you don't have to even time to play the move d4. Seems tempting, maybe that you could connect somehow your pawns here on the queen side, but then bishop to b1 is very aggressive here by black. It's almost, I would say, losing here because of knight to c3. You get the fork against the queen and the rook. Game over here for white. Even if you try, I don't know, I've really searched for options after move bishop to f5, what white can do here in this particular position. You could maybe try h3, but then e4 keeps here a very nice attacking flow for black. You have to play, I don't know, bishop to c6, b takes c6. You can maybe jump with your knight here, but then the queen is coming. Look at this very aggressive line. You're trying maybe to pick up the piece, then we pick up also this one, and still the lack of development is a huge issue here for white. You could maybe try, I don't know, finally to play the move d4, but now with the rook king to h8 and rook to g8, I guarantee you this is, I'm not saying game over for white, but this position is slowly but surely collapsing. When the knight comes on f4, we can also play bishop to h6, bishop to f4. So the g-file attack is, I think, devastating here to handle for white. So that's why for bishop to f5, the only good move actually for white is the move d3 that Velvet played. Tried now to keep somehow the position intact here in the center of the board, but now Stockfish continues with a6. Bishop takes c6, we have b takes c6, and now again there is a huge question. Can white pick up now finally the pawn on e5? Let's see if that's possible. This wasn't played in the game, but knight to e5 is a move that probably many of us would play, but again with a similar problem. Then you play rook to e8. If, of course, knight to c6 happens, we have seen this line before with queen to d7 or queen to e8 also would have been possible to simply attack the knight, force a trade of pieces, and then go for the back rank attack. So, again, a messy game. Maybe queen to d7 is even slightly better than you're trying to attack. Look at this. Then this rook is coming again. Game over here for white. So instead of, I don't know, after knight to e5 and rook to e8, what you could try is maybe the move knight to f3. Seems also tempting that you keep your pieces glued together. Now the knight is also connected to the rook, but again it's not working. Rook to e1, knight to e1, and then queen to e7 attacks now the knight and also this pawn. The issue is you cannot play d4 because of the bishop to b1, knight to c3. We have seen previously a similar tactic, so it's not working. Here you can maybe try to play queen to e1 instead of knight to e1, but then this pawn is hanging on d3, and that's a perfect position for the bishop pair. The position is exploding, the position is opened, and also obvious targets we have here that black can attack. Many positional problems are, of course, happening on the b file. This bishop is the best minor piece now suddenly on the board. So with the bishop pair here, my Stockfish engine at home evaluates this position, for instance, as 2.5 in black's favor. So I would say game over here for white. So very unpleasant. So what you could try as after knight to e5 and rook to e, you could maybe try to move f4 to support your knight in a different way, but again, it's not working. Stockfish had everything under control. Look at this, even g5 methods are working here. We're trying knight to c6, then queen to c7, and again, you're trying to retreat. But again, the position gets a little bit endangered here. Again, bishop to e5, then rook to e5. Look at this, queen to e5. If you move the knight, then again, the c3 pawn is hanging. So again, there are some worries of bishop takes b1, knight to c3, and similar stuff. So again, the same tactical opportunities are here in black's favor, pardon me. So here you see after the move d3 and a6, bishop takes c6 and b takes c6, so far Velvet cannot pick up the pawn on e5 because of a huge attack here for black. So that's why Velvet tried c4. This is of course one of the best ideas to simply get rid of this annoying knight. d4, as we mentioned, again, it's not working because of bishop to b1 and knight to c3, again, the fork against the rook and the queen. So c4 here by Velvet. Stockfish continues with knight to f6. Again, a tricky move because knight to e5 is not working here because you get knight to g4. You have now a double attack against the knight, and you see also the rook is lined up now here on a1. You could maybe try d4, but then knight takes e5, d takes e5, queen takes d1, rook to d1, and then bishop to e5. If you move the rook to a2, then the knight is hanging on b1. Again, the lack of development is very huge issue for white. So that's why after knight to f6, still Velvet cannot pick up the piece, plays now bishop to b2, puts more pressure against the weak pawn on e5. Stockfish protects it, and again, knight to e5 is not working because after knight to e5, bishop to e5, after a couple of trades of pieces, then queen to d4 is creating a double attack against both of these rooks. Again, the game over here for white. Very wild stuff. So that's why after knight to d7, Velvet finally developed the piece. But the issue now for Stockfish is that bishop to d3 now doesn't make sense because now finally black can be challenged in this way. White can simply pick up the pieces, can even trade off everything, and now queen to d4 is of course not a huge threat because finally the queen is connected now to the rook. It's a different story. So bishop to d3 could be tempting, but it's actually too slow. Stockfish found really a better idea, played now beautiful knight to c5. Knight to c5 is now huge difference because now you can activate your knight on d3. You can also create some forks maybe against the bishop and the rook. So good options now suddenly here for black. And the engine gives here only slightly edge for black. My Stockfish engine at home says 0.3 in black's favor. Nothing spectacular, but of course white has to now play the game correctly. We have now knight to e5, bishop to e5, great move, bishop to e5, knight to d3. You see Stockfish grab now the pawn on d3 in a different way. Velvet has to now stay connected to the bishop on e5, and now after knight to e5, the rook takes e5 and queen to f6. We have now reached this position in which again, as I said, black has a slightly edge, but nothing spectacular. Black has also a couple of weak pawns here. White is, of course, also a couple of weak pawns. But the only maybe advantage here that black is that the pawns are on both sides. And usually in endgames, when the bishops are on the board against the knight, then you want to have the position more and more stretched, where the bishop can maybe be more active. But nothing spectacular. I would say, again, if white plays the game fully correctly here, then the game should probably end with a draw. So here queen to e1 by Velvet, good move. A rook from f to d8, slightly edge as I said here for black, attacking now also the knight on d2. The huge threat is of course some tactical idea like rook to d2, and then after queen takes d2, deflect the queen from the defense of the rook and maybe grab the rook. But still, maybe white is also the option to play an in-between rook takes f5, but still this rook is also a little bit misplaced, so the queen becomes a little bit overloaded to the defense of all these other pieces on the board. Knight to f3 by Velvet, good move, keeping everything compact here. Rook to d3 by the fish, again with some tactical ideas. I don't know, to play in some lines, rook to f3 and then queen to e5. So far, it's not possible because the queen is still protecting it, but at least Stockfish is threatening something. And here comes, I would say, now the critical moment of the game. Here, Velvet has to play queen to b4. Queen to b4 is keeping now white at least somehow active in the game, because now after something like bishop to g4, maybe black could try this attack against knight on f3, then you play tricky rook to e1, and here this counter attack possibility, I think Velvet missed, because the issue is now that you cannot pick up the piece here immediately with bishop to f3, then actually you get checkmate. It's rook to e8, rook takes e8, rook takes e8, king has to go here, and then with queen to f8, this would be a spectacular checkmate. So after rook from a to e1, that's why black has to play a passive king to g7, and now suddenly black can get challenged in this way. White can defend his position with rook to e3, rook to e3, and I would say the position continues, but nothing spectacular. Then black can play bishop to f3, rook takes f3 is not working because of the dangerous check here, but even after g takes f3, okay, the position is a little bit messed up in front of white's king, but I would say still an equal position, slightly edge for black, but I would dare to say in top AI level, this should probably end with a draw. But instead of queen to b4, must move here for Velvet. Velvet played seemingly aggressive move with rook to a5, but this move is bad because now suddenly the pieces of white get more and more disconnected. You see white had to keep the pieces somehow glued together. Now Stockfish continues with an aggressive bishop to g4. No tactics, no dangerous tactics against black's position are possible now. Knight to e5 seems again tempting, but rook to e8, great counter play here by the fish. We have now queen to b4, a little bit slow because here after bishop to d1, great move here by Stockfish, because rook takes e5 is not working because of queen to b8. That's now the huge threat. Then you get checked and you lose decisive material here. So this is not working. So after queen to b4, that's why bishop to d1. We have now h3 by Velvet, trying somehow to create breathing spaces for the king. Knight to d3 is not working here because of queen to a1, completely winning position now for black. So that's why h3, rook to d4. We have now queen to c5, and now queen to f4. Stockfish keeps now more and more activity here. They put more pressure here simply against black, against white's queen. Queen to a7. Velvet plays a counterattack against the weakness on f7, and now rook from e to d8. Again, this rook to e5 move is not working because of queen to b8 double attack, and again, game over here for black. So that's why after rook from e to d8 by Stockfish, g3 by Velvet, and this move, okay, it creates an attack against the queen, but also creates now light square weaknesses in front of white's king, and of course black has still the light square bishop on the board. So slowly but surely this game turns simply into one-way ticket here, but in black's favor. Queen to f6 here by Stockfish, an attack against the knight. We have now here rook to b1, bishop to c2, rook to f1, and now bishop to e4. f3 by Velvet. Stockfish simply retreats. King to g2. You could maybe try here g4, but then after bishop to e6, there is maybe this tactic to disconnect now both of these rooks, but still I would say, look at this, c takes d5, then we pick up this one, then after something like d takes c4, the queen is still connected to the rook. Game over, I would say again. Here for white lost an important pawn. Black is going to push this pawn. White's king is also a little bit endangered here with many dark square and light square problems. So I would say again, completely winning position here for Stockfish. That's why bishop to f5. Velvet tried king to g2. Now Stockfish continues with h5. Great attack. Then also with move h4. Rook to f2 by Velvet. h4. We have now g takes h4. If you try now g4 here to pass through, then bishop to d3, and then the queen could sneak in here to the square f4, then queen to g3. So again, not a good continuation here for Velvet. So after h4, Velvet tried g takes h4, and now bishop takes h3. Now Stockfish is getting it through. King takes h3, queen to h4. We have now king to g2, Rook, queen to g5, and you check. The issue is now you cannot get your king here to h1 into security because you get check, and even if you cover with this rook, then this other rook is coming into the game, and actually it's game over. It's a checkmate. You can just cover with the queen, but then queen to g1, game over. So queen to g5, we have here knight to g4, but you see now what was really the beautiful tactical idea here by Stockfish. Now the knight cleared the fifth rank, and Stockfish can grab now the rook, and Stockfish in this tactical sequence won decisive material, and this should be, of course, completely winning here for Stockfish 17. Queen to e7, Stockfish goes for the further trades of pieces. Why not? Simplification is always good when you're up in material. Queen to d8, trying, of course, to simplify the game. And now, after rook to d1, in this particular position, Velvet resigned. So, okay, maybe, I don't know, White could push this position a little bit more, but Black is up the exchange, has also an extra pawn. The clear plan for Black is here, so somehow I would say trade off the queens, which will probably happen in the next couple of moves, and then easily go with your rook for his weaknesses, push one pawn, and again, completely a winning position here for Stockfish. So, great game here by the fish in the Rossolimo Nyezhmetdinov attack. I think it was a nice and instructive one, could be useful maybe in your preparation against this very unpleasant method. So as I said, this we're not going to answer. Sorry that. So in the beginning, this b4 move was of course progressive, but I think this d5 counterplay in the center of the board has to be known, has to be played now. Although you have maybe some problems here with the move c5, but then the piece activity is something that Black gains here. A very cool method here by Stockfish 17. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this beautiful study in this Rossolimo Nyezhmetdinov attack. If you want to see some other spectacular games played by Stockfish and also by some other AIs, check out our Come to Chess Games Played by Computer series. Here's the link of our playlist, and if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.